So before starting, I think it's important to understand why we're doing it. Basically, we're doing that because there is a big part in the work of the EUROPARC Federation about capacity building, and that's really in that frame of mind that we are putting together this seminar. And it is also part of the LIFE Natur'Adapt project, which I am about to present. It's important to understand that we are NGOs and that this program and all the activities that we are doing in the project are possible thanks to the support and, well, even the enthusiastic support of the LIFE program and its team. The Agence Française pour la Biodiversité, which is now called Office Français pour la Biodiversité. So that's basically the Agency for Biodiversity in France, and the Ministry of Ecological Transition. This being said, I will now start to present the project and some of the outputs that have already been achieved. Okay, just checking. So, quick reminder with EUROPARC. EUROPARC is the largest network of protected areas across Europe, geographical Europe, not only the EU. So that means about 37 countries, I think, in our membership. So about 400 members. All types of members, NGOs, protected areas, national agencies, regional agencies. So a very wide and diverse membership. Or key programs, and that's not exhaustive, obviously, but we have a work done on members' representation to the EU. So we have a person, so Stefania Petrosilo, to name her, who's working to have the discussion about protected areas with EU institutions. We have a program about youth. You may know it, so it's called Junior Ranger. We also have Youth Plus, which are two programs to look at involving youth in the management and of the protected areas, in nature conservation, and in the development of the territory, basically. That's very, well, people who participate to that program are very enthusiastic. There is a lot of energy to tap in. It's really great. Then we have a older program that is the European Charter for Sustainable Tourism. Well, the name says it all. It's a program to really help protected areas and local, well, and territories develop their sustainable tourism strategy, which is important for most of the protected areas. And then we have transboundary cooperation, so transboundary parks, sorry, which is a program that, well, facilitates transboundary cooperation, which is actually the reason why EUROPARC was founded in the first place. It was to really promote international cooperation, which remains our core focus. Okay, so that's just to make sure we are all on the same page on who EUROPARC is. Now I would like to just very briefly share with you what is the LIFE Natur'Adapt program. When I say very briefly, it's just that, well, we don't want to spend too much time on that. And it's a very large project, okay? It's a project that will last over 5 years. And so there are many outputs. And it's quite a large project too. We are 10 partners. 9 French partners and EUROPARC. Among the partners, well, Réserve Naturelle de France is the lead partner. So they also are a federation, but of reserve this time. And then we have, well, protected areas, French reserves that are actually doing the experimentation, and then a number of other partners that really help achieve the goals and leverage the outcomes, basically. So what is the project? It is an experiment that is very important. So this team of people are looking at what is being done about climate change adaptation in protected areas, and then they are trying it on the ground. And the goal is to develop a methodology from the ground up, basically, and not from the books down. So the goal is to see how we can integrate climate change in the management of protected areas. So we talk about the methodology, and we are also trying to strengthen and develop a community of experts. There are many people who are already at work on the topic, and we could do with some more integration, I suppose. So what do we do in that project? Well, first of all, we look in details at what is the vulnerability assessment? How do you do that? We'll touch on that later, especially with the work that has been done by the Scottish Natural Heritage, which is an example. And so basically, before trying to adapt your management and develop adaptation measures, you have to understand where you are vulnerable and what will the future climate look like. It is easier said than done, because we will learn that there are many uncertainties, there are a lot of things that we don't know, and basically we have to learn to cope with that. We also talk about adaptation measures. Then, as I said, we are trying to build a community and to how do you do that? How do you say that? Well, to gather these people, we are building. It's a collaborative platform. So it will be a digital space where people can find each other, interact with each other, learn from each other. And we are also building an online course that will help people get into the methodology so that they go faster. Okay, so the role of EUROPARC in that project is we participate to the steering of the project, and then we are the interface with the European network. So this seminar is really the proof of and the example of the tangible of what we are trying to achieve. We did an online survey, and many of you participated. I want to thank you for that, because that was very helpful to understand where do the community of nature conservation professionals stand on the question of climate change. I will share a number of the results right after. We have started a climate change task force. So it's a group of 7 people that will work on a policy paper and on building and gathering tools and examples and best practices that will be shared through some kind of toolkit. We have to work on that. The role of EUROPARC is also to disseminate, help in building capacity through workshops, webinars, articles, and toolkits. Every year at the annual EUROPARC conference, we will organize a workshop on climate change. And in 2020, the annual EUROPARC conference will be focusing on climate change adaptation for protected areas. It should happen in France. The location is to be defined. Okay. So, as I said, the first preparatory action was to really benchmark where do people stand in terms of climate change adaptation in protected areas. So we are not talking about the local territories here. We are really talking about the protected area managers and their teams, basically. And so it was a survey that we ran online, and then we did a number of interviews to put that together. There is a report that is available. The full report is only available in French at the moment, but there is a summary that is available on EUROPARC's website in English. Okay, just quickly. Well, first of all, climate change effects are observed among European protected areas. When we say climate change effects are observed, actually we see things that we could attribute to climate change. Increasing temperatures, prolonged droughts, heavy rainfalls, extreme climate events, and so on. Obviously, we are scientists, and so we cannot be sure that it is related to climate change, but all indicators pointed in that direction. Then, that was interesting. Climate change is a priority. I don't think it was the same 5 years ago. So the climate change awareness people are doing their job well, I think. We feel it more concretely as seasons pass. So it is a priority, but for 77% of the respondents, and it's quite short term, so less than 10 years. This being said, it remains secondary to the destruction of the natural habitats. Actually, climate change is yet another pressure that will be added to the existing situation. Most of the people I have talked to say basically, well, the more fragile the ecosystem is, the more sensitive it will be to climate change. And so climate change will be a bigger issue for places where the ecosystems or the socio-ecosystems are fragile. It is still an emerging practice, unfortunately. Only 22% did a vulnerability assessment. And among those 22%, only a third did actually a detailed vulnerability assessment, which is the first step to do climate change adaptation. So basically, it is very emerging. But there are many innovators that are already at work. And in this virtual room, we have people who have been working on climate change adaptation for a number of years. So our first position would be to just introduce them to you so that they can share their experience and knowledge and maybe be inspiring examples. Yeah, that I'll skip. So what is the process today to adapt to climate change? Well, we don't really know. So it's about trying, learning, adapting, trying again and again and again until we see positive results. So that's what people have been doing up till now. But this can be translated in some kind of methodology. You have a spark. So a manager will say, well, I need to look into that. It could be the governing body who says, look, protected areas, you have to look into climate change adaptation now. Please prepare yourself. So that's the first. And then, well, you have a research phase. You look into what has been done. You look at what the climate will be. You look at the climate scenarios, IPCC, for instance. And then you do the vulnerability assessment. That's really to understand where your area is vulnerable. And so it should help you plan your action. Then you establish the monitoring of climate variables and effects. So that's important because not all climate indicators will be interesting to you. If you are in the mountains, obviously, sea level rise won't impact you too much, but the number of days of frost may. Then you have the phase where planning is done. And that's very important to the work of protected area managers, because basically they are responsible for the planning and the implementation of the plan. We know that planning procedures are not that easy. And so adding this new pressure may take some work and energy. And that's really why the Natur'Adapt team is there. It's really to look into what's efficient, what works, what doesn't, and so that people can learn from the experience. And then you have to monitor what's happening and try again. So here I wrote, well, based on the survey results, we could write this linear process. Obviously, I put two big arrows to explain that it is not linear. And that is maybe what changes the most, is that it's very iterative. You are learning about these aspects, and then you are changing a bit, and then you are relearning on the effects and so on. So that's maybe the most important learning so far. Then we asked the question whether protected areas had a role in climate change mitigation as nature-based solution, for instance. Well, in our community, our small community, 90% of the people agree. And here are a list of things that the protected areas could do. Yeah, to conclude, that is important because there is a lot of uncertainty related to climate change, what causes it, what are the effects and so on. There are a number of uncertainties whether or not climate change is the cause of the effects that we observe. And so I wanted to end my presentation with something that has been said by many of the people we interviewed, but I'm quoting Kathy Hopley, who was working on the planification at the Forest of Bowland, AONB at the time, and well, she's saying that even though the path is uncertain, just go for it. It is very interesting and simpler than it appears. On that, I will conclude my presentation of the project, and then I will take your questions if you have any. This is my